Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama. Welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation.
Today we're covering the Kung Fu Panda sequel, just titled Kung Fu Panda 2. Just added 2 at the end.
Very simple. The second movie embraces a much darker tone as Lord Shen threatens to wipe out every Kung Fu master in the valley and dominate the land, leaving Po and the Five to stop him.
Yes. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click notification buttons on future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. As we mentioned, it's a sequel to Kung Fu Panda that came out in 2008 and the second installment of the Kung Fu Panda franchise. Directed by Jennifer Nelson, her first directional debut, and written by Jonathan Ibo and Glenn Berger.
Right. Now, for this one, this came out, I think a few years later after the first one. I think it was about it was either 2 or 4 year
3 year.
Yeah, 3 year, thank you. A 3 year time before they had a sequel. And we were kind of surprised to see one because the way the first one ended, you actually would have been fine if it was just one movie and done. But it did so well, they said, okay, let's do a sequel. Well, what could we tell for this one? Well, this one is considered the favorite or the best out of the 3. Lots of people loved it because it, as we said, embraced a much darker tone. Now, for me, it did great with it, but I didn't want to see that every single movie. And when it didn't come to the third movie, people were disappointed that it wasn't as dark as the second one. It was too fun. And I was like, well, you need a break. This one, if you watch one after the other, you're going to have 2 intense movies. This was a really surprisingly intense film because of the story. Shen was wiping out people, taking over places in China. He wanted to kill Po because there was something foretold that black and white would defeat him. He thought that meant panda, so he's nearly wiped out all the pandas. And that ties into Po's backstory where he starts to ask, where did he come from? How did he get there? Because all he's known is just that valley. He doesn't know where he's been. And it raises a lot of questions in here. And it's not bad questions, it's just there's a lot more meat to it in here, more psychological, more emotional and stuff. I think it was nice to have a break with the third one. So this worked well, though, fantastically for the second one, and they managed to balance it out with still some comedy thrown in and still making it a fun movie.
Absolutely. 2 points. First, this movie, number 2, had a budget of $150 million, and it grossed $665 million at the box office.
Wow.
And the entire cast returned, including, we failed to mention in the first podcast, Seth Rogen.
Oh, yeah.
And Jackie Chan. How could we forget Jackie Chan?
Oh, my God.
Reprising the roles from the first film. So you hear back Jack Black, Angelina Jolie, Dustin Hoffman, Lucy Liu, David Cross, James Hong, and the addition of the excellent Gary Oldman.
Yes, yeah, we'll be getting to that. So, with this one, it shows what goes on outside Valley of Peace. You knew there were other places beyond it, but you really only stayed in this one area, plus a prison in the first one. This one, they traveled to Gangnam City, which was, I guess, kind of like their bossing say, in a way, and to stop Shen. And what really stood out is that, like we said, it's a more action-based, a little bit darker tone. Po sees a symbol that he actually remembers. It triggers a memory from when he was a baby and he saw his mother. Because up until then, he never thought about it. But the symbol triggered it, and he asked Mr. Ping, what about his mother? What happened to her and everything? And that's when Mr. Ping tells him how he found him and raised him. It's one of the most adorable things ever in a movie. and what I like what they handled with this, which we mentioned in the first one, was that, no one ever really questioned it. And I guess they figured, okay, well, let's find a way to address this without being overbearing about it. So in here, he just really wants to know because he has these memories he can't decipher, and he's really struggling with it. And there's never a point where Po says Mr. Ping was not his dad, he's not his real dad, or something really hurtful like that. There was one scene where he's, oh, you are my son, right? And he didn't really answer, which was like the only Mama pointed out at one point, it was the only part was kind of like, okay, maybe you should at least said something. I get he was thinking, but it seemed a little awkward that there wasn't an answer.
Yes.
But it was like, please don't go there. They don't, but
that's what you thought was coming.
Right. They don't.
Like, no, please don't let it happen. Please.
Right, and they don't. It's still a happy ending by the end, and he said, you're my dad no matter what, and that was like a really great thing they did, and they didn't harp on it, try to add in drama. It was just something actually interesting and connected to the story, and of how Shen ties in everything. It was phenomenally done, and I really like if they're gonna do this type of storyline, do it in a way like this where it's important and not just because they want to add in some drama and stuff and do some basic writing. Now, for the thing that stands out the most about this is Lord Shen himself.
Yeah.
And he is considered the best villain of the franchise. This is considered the best movie of the franchise, so you gotta go along with it. And he's a really different from Tai Lung.
Tai Lung was forceful, powerful. He was very feral. That's the word I'm thinking of. And he just wanted what he wanted. And all of the lessons he had learned, he just threw out the window because he wanted power.
Right.
And for this character, Shen, he was already powerful.
Right.
And he was elegant and a peacock. And
right.
Beautiful.
Right.
And educated and royal.
Right. And when you get his backstory immediately in the beginning of the movie, which is done by some great puppeteer animation, really well done. And it saw that he and his family were really fantastic at making beautiful fireworks. That was their way of spreading like the color of their feathers out into the sky. It was really well done. And Shen was really fantastic at it as well. But there was a bit of a darkness in him, kind of like with Tai Lung, and he was using the fireworks first it was for beauty, then he started using it for destruction, like he was blowing things up and destroying things he didn't like with it, and the parents saw this was not good. And then he had learned that there was going to be a destiny for him, that he would be defeated by something of black and white. To him, that meant, okay, a parent's going to stop him. So he went and believed he wiped out all the pandas in the valley, and you didn't expect that firsthand. Like, oh gosh, they're actually going here with that. And the parents practically banished him, and since then he's been like literally paranoid for years about, did all the pandas get taken out, and he thinks he's gonna rule all of China. But then he hears about a panda still being alive. He starts to get paranoid throughout the whole film, because there's still something that could possibly stop him, even though he keeps saying, oh, I'm not afraid of this. And even with all this, he was still had this mentality years later, and this like obsessiveness. Even though he believed that they were all gone, he knew something was off. And then the fact Po shows up, he thinks this is going to be it, and something he thinks he shouldn't be afraid of, he is terrified of.
Now, two things on that. One, Gary Oldman was fantastic.
Yes.
I was familiar with him from several live action movies. He's always brilliant whatever he does. Even when a movie sucks, he shines. But here, he just brought a whole nother level to the VA acting in this movie.
Yes.
And all of that brilliant performance that comes from live action came through in Shen.
Yes. Yes.
And second thing is, in 2011, unlike now, well, this is common seeing these type of characters in animated works. It was not common in 2011. This was like, whoa.
Right.
And it's another reason why it stands the test of time. Going back and watching it after all these years is still just as powerful and just as amazing a story, and the performance is just as amazing.
Right.
It wasn't standard fare in 2011.
Right. Exactly.
And what I love about it is, not only was it not standard fare, but the way it was presented, written, performed, it's a standout.
Yes.
Absolutely. A beautiful movie, as you said, with a darker head.
Right. And Shen really stuck out to people. Anyone who saw it, it was like this was a different guy from Tai Lung. He's different from Kai, who you see later. And I do remember, like, Gary Oldman, he practically stole the movie.
Yes.
He was the villain. You know what happened to the villain at the end if you watched it, but he practically stole the film from everyone else.
Yes.
And he was so intimidating that he was so great in this role and terrifying as this villain that he just started getting villain roles. It wasn't even animated. He just started being villain after villain after villain in a movie because he performed Shen so well. He just started being a villain in every movie for a while.
And before that, he had been a good guy in movies.
Right. Now it's like, villain! It's like, oh, what villain? Who should we get to be this villain? Gary Oldman!
But it's absolutely a fantastic sequel. And now you get sequels, or you get reboots, or reimaginings, or whatever names they want to call them, and they're awful. But here, this was just as good,
if not
better than the original.
Yes.
That 3-year gap, they took the time to create something, again, magical and exemplary. And I think that was a really big key. They took their time and did it. Not rushing it out so they can get that money.
Right.
The first movie, I think it took $130.
Oh, wow.
The budget was $130 million, and it grossed over $633 million.
Right.
The first movie.
Right.
This one took $150 million, and it grossed even more, as I told you, $650-some thousand.
Yeah.
And so clearly they stuck to what worked.
Right.
And didn't just rush to get it out, and it shows in the quality of this film.
Right. And you really love how everything is all interconnected within the movie. The Poe's past, Shen's past, the destiny, the black and white, the inner peace, everything was really connected. And they really did a good job of making it more mature, but not going so dark where these kids can't watch it, but not making it so childish where you can't take it seriously. They have still a perfect balance within it. And
they also were smart enough to keep the same writers for the
right.
second movie.
Right, but it's great because usually they like to change out the writers and make it different. And as you said, Shen stuck out because that wasn't being done then. Now, you know, the dichotomy of having a really goofy, fun main character hero and then a really serious, quiet, intimidating villain being literally polar opposite of the hero and being a threat. That's done so much now. Now every hero is goofy as heck and stupid. Poe's not stupid, but that's what they write now.
Right.
And then every villain is serious and intimidating and threatening and doesn't have that presence, but they want you to know, okay, we're going to have a serious villain and a goofy hero. They found the serious villain isn't so serious after the first season, and they just completely destroy what's been built up. But here, no, Shen stays a threat the whole time, even with his ramblings and his maniacalness, and you could tell even in his voice that he was just kind of just hanging on by a thread with his sanity when he was talking to the soothsayer. There were just so many scenes in there. It was like, yeah, he is like slowly losing. His fanny snapped. That's just going on. And Poe, he's not going crazy, but he's sort of in a way losing a grasp because of his past, finding out about his parents, Shen being involved in it. And luckily, like I said, the struggle and everything isn't done that long. There's one scene where he comes to terms with it. You see the whole scene play out what happened to his mother. And then he knows who he is and he goes back out. It doesn't linger on the whole movie and starts crippling the character.
Exactly.
So I do like that when they come up with these ideas and these storylines and situations, they're done easily, they're done quickly, and it's done in a way you find them interesting, and it doesn't hinder the movie and your enjoyment because they gotta bring up these topics.
The best thing about it is this Kung Fu Panda 2 sequel proved that this movie being a hit was not a fluke. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a chance and a fluke. They got lucky. No.
Right.
It was well thought out, well prepared, and again, they took 3 years to do it. So DreamWorks is to be applauded for seeing the value in this franchise, continuing with it, being smart enough to keep the same writers, bringing back the same voice actors, and bringing additional live actors.
Right.
Again, Gary Oldman. Mm-hmm. You also had Jean-Claude Van Damme, Michelle Yeoh. You had these people who, again, brought fabulous performances as VAs to animated characters. Again and again, Gary Oldman, as you said, almost nearly stole the movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Jack Black was like on the cusp. kicked off the precipice.
Right. Right. Oh, and on top of that, with the music, all the music stands out for the background, for the opening, for the end credit sequence. All the music throughout the film is phenomenal, just like the first one.
And it's got a wonderful soundtrack.
Yes.
That's still available to purchase.
I think by Hans Zimmerman, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry, Hans Zimmer. Yes, and just so much stands out about this movie that, you know, people have made so many videos about particular characters, different arcs, Poe's backstory, Shen himself, the animation, the music. There was just so much to talk about. Now, we can't go on for an hour or two about it, but...
And we're also going to be talking about Kung Fu Panda 3.
Right.
And the Christmas special.
Right. And it shows just how amazingly done this was, how detailed, how creative, and just how much they really cared about this franchise.
And lastly, for me, how Jack Black made Poe feel real. He brought a personality to him. He brought a depth to him. He brought an ambiance. He brought something that I don't think any other actor would have brought, including a part of himself. I mean, so much of it was Jack Black.
Right.
When you think about his other movies, his interviews, and just him as a person. And he brought all of that into Poe. And that made Poe such a lovable character. Decades later, he's still one of the most favorite animated characters of all time.
Right.
So, if you have seen Kung Fu Panda 2, and we know you have, let us know what you think in the comments below. Did you love Lord Shen as much as we did? The villain you love to hate? Let us know in the comments as well. If you haven't seen it, get on the Netflix or buy it because it's available on Amazon and everywhere else. And watch this movie. You're doing yourself a grave injustice by not watching this trilogy. The second movie is just as good or even better in some opinions than the first movie.
Yes. And if you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, click the notification bell to update the future podcasts and we'll pause videos.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your support and joining us today. I'm getting tongue-tied with happiness.
Right.
Really appreciate you. And if we're not subscribed to you already, let us know in the comments below so we can check out your channel and support you as well.
Right. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.